Have you ever noticed something strange happens when you start to change? Really change? The people around you get uncomfortable. They don't say it directly. Oh no, they're smarter than that. They disguise it with jokes, with advice that sounds like concern, with that awkward silence when you talk about something deeper than the weather. But here's what's really happening. Your growth threatens their comfort zone, and nobody likes being forced to look in the mirror. Maybe you're going through this right now. You started thinking differently, acting differently, questioning things you once accepted without a second thought. And suddenly, you feel alone, misunderstood, judged. What nobody told you, what most people don't understand, is that this is the price of building a truly strong mind. Not just any kind of strength, but strength so real, so intense, that it makes others uncomfortable. It scares them, because a truly powerful mind is a threat. A threat to mediocrity, a threat to the comfortable lies we tell ourselves, a threat to the autopilot existence most people call living. This talk isn't for everyone. It's not for those who want easy answers or comfortable truths. It's for you. If you're tired of being a hostage to your own insecurities, if you feel on the brink of something bigger, if you're ready to build something unbreakable, a mind that no one can manipulate, a mind that terrifies because it doesn't bend. So if you're ready for this path, lonely, tough, but absolutely transformative, stay with me, because what I'm about to share will confront you. But it can also set you free. And before we dive deep into this transformation, if this message is already resonating with you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell, because content like this doesn't get recommended by the algorithm. It gets shared by people who understand its value. Your engagement helps us reach others who are ready for this journey. And after today, you'll never think the same way again. Friedrich Nietzsche wasn't just a philosopher. He was a surgeon of the human soul, someone who had the courage to look into the abyss of existence and not just face it, but dive into it. And it's precisely in that abyss, in that inner chaos that most people avoid, that he found the source of true strength. Because here's what Nietzsche understood. It's not in peace, stability, or order that human beings transform. It's in pain. It's in the fall. It's in chaos. He wrote, "You need chaos inside you to give birth to a dancing star." This isn't poetic metaphor. This is psychological diagnosis. It means if you want to build an unshakable mind, you need to abandon the childish idea that it'll happen through comfort, through cheap motivation, through positive affirmations plastered on your bathroom mirror. True strength is born when you face suffering without running, when you stop asking for life to be easier and start demanding to be stronger. Think about it. When did you grow the most? Was it when everything was fine? When life was smooth and predictable? Or was it when you were shattered, lost, directionless, having to rebuild yourself with your own hands? Nietzsche believed that suffering wasn't a mistake of existence. It was its main driving force. He didn't romanticize pain. He faced it as a tool. And if you can change your relationship with pain, with failure, with loneliness, you begin to shape something rare, an indomitable spirit. This is where the world begins to be disturbed by you. Because while most people flee from chaos, you learn to walk within it. While others beg for normality, you create greatness. But this transformation requires a brutal break with everything you were taught about strength. Being strong isn't about smiling all the time. It's not about fake emotional control or pretending everything's fine. Being strong is enduring the unbearable and coming out the other side even more dangerous. But Nietzsche knew that chaos alone isn't enough. You can be destroyed by it if you don't have an inner center, an anchor. And that's why he did something that shocked the world. He killed God. Not literally, of course, but philosophically, spiritually. And in doing so, he placed upon us the full weight of existential responsibility. When Nietzsche declared God is dead, he wasn't celebrating. He was issuing a warning that most people still don't understand today. What he killed wasn't a divine figure. He killed the illusion that there's a higher authority taking care of everything. The illusion that there's a plan, a pre-established meaning, a purpose handed down from above. The death of God is the end of excuses, and that's terrifying. Because until then, it was easy to outsource responsibility for your life. It was comforting to believe that everything happens for a reason, that suffering is part of a divine plan, that there's a greater good that will justify everything in the end. Nietzsche violently tears this veil away. He looks you in the face and says, "You are alone. There is no ready-made meaning. You are the creator now." And this is where the true construction of a powerful mind begins. Most people collapse when they realize they're alone, facing chaos without a manual, without guarantees, with no one to blame. But those who have the courage to face this without crumbling, they begin to forge an unshakable consciousness. With the death of God, Nietzsche pushes you into the abyss of radical freedom. You don't follow commandments. You create values. You don't obey. You surpass yourself. It's the birth of brutal autonomy. And with it comes the weight. Everything now depends on you. There's no more salvation. Either you build yourself or you sink. But here's the secret. This freedom that frightens you is also the greatest source of power you can have. When you understand that no one is coming to save you, something awakens inside you. A fire that compels you to rise even while bleeding. That forces you to think for yourself, feel for yourself, act not because someone said it's right, but because you decided it is. It's in this rupture with existential crutches that Nietzsche prepares the ground for something even more grandiose. The emergence of a new way of being. A type of human who doesn't live according to the rules of the herd, who doesn't need approval or permission. A being who creates their own morality, surpasses their own limits, and lives as a creator. A being that frightens the weak because it forces them to see themselves as they truly are. This being has a name. Nietzsche called it the Übermensch, the overman. The Übermensch isn't a superhero. It's not someone with mystical powers flying around in a cape. The Übermensch is a being who has overcome everything that binds ordinary people. Guilt, obedience, herd morality, the desperate need for acceptance. The Übermensch doesn't seek to be accepted, doesn't ask for permission to exist, creates internal laws and lives by them, even if that puts them against the entire world. And that's exactly why their mind becomes unbreakable. Because it's not built on the expectations of others. It doesn't need external approval to validate itself. It's self-sufficient. It feeds on its own will to power, the deep impulse to shape reality according to its own vision. This is the central point. The Übermensch doesn't adapt to the world. They impose meaning on the world. They don't seek comfort. They seek greatness. They don't ask, "Is this allowed?" They ask, "Is this worthy of me?" And this shift in perspective changes everything, because when you start to see yourself as a creator, not as a servant, the way you think, act, and feel transforms completely. But here's the problem. Becoming this kind of being requires sacrifice. You'll have to kill parts of yourself that still beg for approval. You'll have to face the pain of not belonging. You'll have to bear the weight of building your identity from scratch, without guarantees, without pats on the back, without applause from the audience. And most people can't handle it. They give up before they start. They run back to the safety of ready-made beliefs, dogmas, and rules that someone else wrote for them. The path to the Übermensch is lonely. Nietzsche knew this. He himself lived on the margins, misunderstood, called at, isolated from the world he was trying to liberate. But it was in that isolation that he found his freedom. And this is what you need to understand. The stronger your mind becomes, the further you drift from the masses. The higher you rise, the more you disturb. The construction of the Übermensch is the most brutal and transformative process anyone can face, because it requires you to destroy everything that isn't yours, everything imposed on you by a sick culture, by a society that rewards obedience and punishes authenticity. Only after destroying do you begin to build. But this construction doesn't happen in the crowd. It happens in silence, in withdrawal, in the deep solitude that separates the strong from the weak. If there's something no one tells you about the path of mental strength, it's this. The stronger you become, the lonelier you feel. And it's not because you isolate yourself by choice. It's because the world doesn't know what to do with you anymore. Nietzsche spoke clearly about this. The free spirit, the one who breaks away from common morality, who doesn't accept easy truths, who thinks for themselves, inevitably distances themselves from the herd. And that distancing hurts. But that pain is necessary, because real growth requires space, and you can't grow while being tied to the expectations of others. Most people live within an invisible herd. Every thought is policed. Every action is measured by others' reactions. You've gotten used to walking in a group, thinking like the group, feeling secure because there are people around you. But what Nietzsche proposes is the opposite. He tears you away from that comfort and throws you into the desert. In that desert, there are no applause, no praise, no guide. There's only you, your doubts, your traumas, your fears, your desire to give up. And that's where the real test begins. What will most people do? They'll run back. They'll hide again behind their masks. They'll pretend they don't feel, don't think, don't see. But you, if you truly want to become someone no one can break, you'll have to stay. You'll have to endure the silence that reveals who you really are. Nietzsche said, "The individual must always struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try, you will often feel lonely and sometimes scared. But no price is too high to pay for possessing yourself." That's the essence, the possession of oneself. The rarest and most powerful achievement anyone can attain. Because when you truly possess yourself, no one else can control you. No one else dictates your worth. And no one else can bring you down. But this possession comes with the weight of loneliness. You'll lose people. You'll be misunderstood. You'll hear that you're arrogant, strange, tolerant. they'll try to pull you back into the mold. They'll call you crazy, cold, insensitive. But that's the price of not being domesticated. It's the price of not needing applause. It's the price of not living as a mirror of others' needs. And here's the raw truth. If you can't stand loneliness, you're not ready for freedom. Because all real freedom comes with abandonment. Abandonment of emotional crutches, of comfortable illusions, of superficial relationships. That's why Nietzsche saw solitude as a privilege, a battlefield where the true self finally has space to emerge. But this free mind, this elevated spirit, doesn't just walk alone. It begins to see what others don't see. And with that comes the inevitable confrontation with mediocrity. Because when you start to become strong, collective mediocrity feels it, and it reacts. Nietzsche didn't fear tyrants or authoritarian leaders. What he feared, what he denounced with philosophical fury, was the subtle, corrosive power of collective mediocrity. That invisible system that keeps everyone leveled down, that punishes those who dare to think differently, that rewards obedience and disguises cowardice as virtue. True tyranny, according to Nietzsche, doesn't come from above. It comes from the sides. It comes from the crowd that demands you remain small so they don't have to grow. And that's exactly what happens when you start to stand out. When your mind becomes sharper, your spirit firmer, your presence more uncomfortable, you begin to disturb. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something rare. You're breaking the mold. And society hates those who break molds. Collective mediocrity can't stand individual brilliance because that brilliance exposes the darkness of ordinary life. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a morality built by those who, unable to achieve greatness, decided to invert values. They transformed strength into arrogance, ambition into selfishness, independence into coldness. And with that, they created a moral system that protects the weak and condemns the strong. But make no mistake, it's not out of compassion, it's out of resentment. Because the weak don't want to be saved. They want the strong to be destroyed. That's why, when you start to liberate yourself, they begin to attack you. Sometimes directly, sometimes subtly, with looks, silence, irony. But the message is clear. Go back to the group. You're making us feel small. And you are, unintentionally, just by being who you are. Nietzsche understood that most people live in paralyzing conformity, an existence shaped by fear, guilt, and obedience. Anyone who questions this state is seen as a threat. But don't be fooled. Mediocrity doesn't attack with force. It attacks with numbers, with consensus, with the weight of repetition. It'll try to make you doubt yourself. It'll make you think you're wrong for not fitting in. It'll use every social resource, from shame to exclusion, to make you lower your head. And it's at this moment that many give up, because they can't bear to be the strange one, the difficult one, the arrogant one. But Nietzsche would give you another name: necessary. Because while the world revolves around recycled ideas, manufactured desires, and comfortable truths, it's the strong individual who brings the necessary discomfort for something new to be born. Your difference is the spark of transformation, but it's also the target of resistance. Being strong, thinking freely, living autonomously. All of this is an act of war against collective mediocrity. You've made it this far. That already sets you apart from the majority. Most people would have stopped listening at the first challenge. They would have tuned out at the first discomfort. They would have left the moment they realized this isn't content, meant to stroke the ego. This is a call to action, a call for those ready to let go of comfortable illusions and face reality with eyes wide open. Because building a mind so strong that it becomes feared isn't just a choice, it's a renunciation. You will lose. You'll lose friendships based on superficiality. You'll lose the opportunities that require submission. You'll lose the ability to be content with mediocrity. But in exchange, you gain something priceless: integrity, clarity, presence. You'll begin to notice that most people live in a kind of sleep, and your lucidity is frightening. Your firmness makes others tremble. Your absence is louder than the presence of many. This strength doesn't come from outside. It's not taught in self-help books. It's not earned with ready-made phrases or empty affirmations. It's dug deep within the soul, in the silence of difficult nights, in the choices no one sees. It's the result of an internal war between who you were and who you're becoming. And this war has no end. Because the truly strong aren't those who have won. They're those who continue to fight, even when they could stop. Nietzsche didn't want to create followers. He wanted to provoke internal earthquakes. He wanted you to stop crawling for approval, to stop begging for meaning, to stop seeking in ready-made systems what can only be built with blood, sweat, and awareness. He wanted you to become dangerous, not in a violent sense, but in a rare sense. So rare that your mere existence forces others to look in the mirror and confront what they're avoiding. This is your moment, right here, right now. You have a choice. You can go back to the comfortable sleep of conformity. You can pretend this conversation never happened. You can return to the herd and find your place among the crowd. Or you can take the first step into the desert, into the chaos, into the frightening, liberating territory of becoming who you really are. I want to challenge you to do something that will solidify this process. When you leave here today, I want you to identify one truth you're tired of hiding, one opinion you're afraid to voice, one thought that makes you feel isolated but represents who you truly are. And then, claim it. Own it. Declare that you will no longer bend. This is part of the journey. Claiming your voice, showing your presence, and more than that, declaring that you will no longer be small to make others comfortable. Because here's what I know about you. You're not here by accident. Something inside you has already begun to change. You feel it, don't you? That restlessness, that dissatisfaction with ordinary life, that hunger for something more. The path ahead is lonely. It's difficult, but it's also the only path that leads to true freedom. You are not alone in this journey. You're just ahead. And that, my friends, is terrifying to some. But it's also liberating. The question isn't whether you're ready to build a mind so strong it terrifies others. The question is, are you ready to terrify yourself? Because that's where it all begins.